EarthBound Zero is probably the first game I ever heard about that had localization troubles. Hence why it'll always be EarthBound Zero to me. Now, I probably don't need to say this, but here it is anyway. Before the game was officially localized as EarthBound Beginnings 7 years ago, it was always known as EarthBound Zero to fans outside of Japan because that's what the unofficial fan translation was called. Though the term fan translation is a bit of a stretch because it was actually a completed translation done by Nintendo of America themselves, but abandoned before it could be released. It's weird to think about how neglected this series feels by Nintendo nowadays when back then when they were going to localize Mother, they were intending on releasing an 80-page instruction booklet that was enhanced, as well as a separate release of the game's soundtrack. But this all ended up falling through because of cost and hardware limitations, which oddly enough would actually become a reoccurring thing throughout the series. Now guys, I have a confession to make. When I was a kid, I hated this game. Well, I found it intriguing, but I thought this game was ugly as sin. I know a lot of people have a problem with this game's difficulty, and believe me, we'll get to that, but one of my less popular opinions about this game is that this game is kind of ugly. Now, I know it was the first game in the series, and it's not really fair to compare it to its successors, but come on, look at Nintendo's sprite compared to Ness and Lucas's. The man has that Timothée Chalamet jawline. The game has a pretty sprawling map, which is impressive for the NES. However, a lot of it is just empty space that you're walking around in. The game's color palette on the overworld also mostly sticks to pastels, which is something I actually kind of like, and something I think was integrated better when it was done in Mother 3. But in a weird poetic way, I feel like it almost reflects the game in the way it's aged. Though very innovative and cool at the time, it's yellowed. Look, I'm gonna stop ragging on the graphics because I gotta be honest, over time, they've really grown on me. But these empty, sprawling landscapes become a problem when the encounter rate is so freaking high. Now, this complaint about the game goes all the way back to the 1980s, over 30 years ago. And it ends up just feeling like the world is so big just to pad the game out because you're constantly running into battles. And I know this isn't something unique to this game, especially when it came to RPGs of the time. But it's again something that just separates it from its sequels because the other ones have so little pad time in between getting to places. But let's talk about the positives for a second. Something I find pretty cool about this game is that it leans much more heavily into its sci-fi genre. While these elements are very much present in the following two games, it's much more focused on fighting aliens and machines and encountering different kinds of robots. While the others have these things, they're more fantastical, I would say, for the most part. I also have to give the game credit where credit is due. It originated a lot of the things I like so much about the future games, like the music. I mean, you just start going to town and you hear... Then a battle starts and you hear that. Sure, particularly with Pollyanna, you hear it a lot, but it doesn't get grating, which is something I can appreciate in a game. And while it's easy to say something not being bad isn't exactly a compliment, my point is that I can freaking rock out to this music. The game's music also achieves a much better cohesiveness than Earthbound's does. This game always has a very definitive song happening in battle, and while Earthbound has some good tunes in its own right, I think a lot of them just rely a little too heavily on ambience and weird EDM sounds for my tastes. And even aside from Pollyanna, this game has one of the greatest songs in the whole series. This song, man, I feel like captures everything everybody loves about this series. It has that quiet sadness about it while still remaining somewhat optimistic. Sure, you're going to face some tough battles and hard times along the way, but let's enjoy this moment right here, right now. But the best thing this game has that the others don't is Teddy! Teddy is so freaking cool. He's funny, bullies nerds, has a knife, Cool haircut, sunglasses. This guy's awesome. But yeah, Teddy's awesome. Hope nothing bad happens to him. Okay, yeah, everyone knows that. I'm gonna try not to dwell on it too long. This game has some serious balancing issues.
今ホーリーローリーマウンテンにいるんですけどってのは一番多いと思いますけどねテスト調整のところでいいやって
With how maze-like some of the map is, it's really unfair to have such a high encounter rate and such high difficulties, particularly later in the game. When it comes to localizations, I like it when they stick as close to the original source material as possible. But a localization change they made for this game that I'm really in favor of is the reducing of some of these maps. EarthBound 0 and the Mother 1+2 fan translation even further try to mend this problem with the Easy Ring, which I'm going to make an entire other video about, so we're not going to get into that now. But yeah, the grinding is a problem. It grinds, with no pun intended, the pacing to a halt for several minutes, or even on occasion maybe an hour. And I think is actually largely the reason the rolling health meter was introduced in later games. If you think about it, the damage output and difficulty of enemies isn't that different, it's just now you have more of a chance to survive it. These balancing issues actually go as far as to make the game unplayable at certain points. Like, come on, this haunted mansion part, are you kidding me with this map? All in all, I actually love this game. Yeah, it's definitely not perfect. I would even say it has some pretty serious issues. But what this at sometimes broken game has that many others don't is soul. This came straight from the heart, man. After it being rejected initially by Shigeru Miyamoto during its initial pitch, Itoi cried at the thought of not being able to create this. EarthBound Beginnings isn't perfect in the same way EarthBound isn't perfect, the same way Mother 3 isn't perfect, the way nothing will ever be perfect. I think one of the best reflections of this product is its name and the localization, EarthBound Beginnings. Not only is it a beginning for the series, it's the beginning for Itoi as a game designer, the beginning of him sharing an experience, a feeling, with us. I've been met with some mixed responses in the past for saying EarthBound Beginnings is more or less a prototype of what EarthBound would be. And I just want to make it clear, that's not an insult. By prototype, I meant the foundational work for the next step in Itoi's journey. If you think about it, every piece of work an artist makes is really just a prototype for their next work. And each installment in their personal gallery of work is a new set of experience for them to take to their next project, to be able to make that next thing that much better. It's all about growing. And the one thing Itoi really clearly learned for his next project was how to design pixel art of monkeys. I mean, come on, look at this.